Fresh blood is red, and dead lips are blue. We cut out our hearts and give them to you.
Good evening, boils and ghouls.
Just go ahead and go to a therapist, like just to see.
It's alright, so this is just strange to me.
They are either disappearing in the night, being taken directly from their bedrooms.
So he was surrounded by trash bags containing chunks of flesh.
Is that you and me as elderly people?
Like she's about to do.
After the first,
And she, in fact, has done worse things.
Right.
round, she was spitting,
Innards
she
were a
was
lot
sweating,
more
she was
sinister.
cussing.
The
all,
legend
but
of the,
she
or the
right on
practice
up
of
her
the
skirt, and I
jack-o'-lantern
kinda
stems
liked her a
from this
little bit,
urban legend or
this fucking
tale
just, you know.
from Ireland.
You were trying so hard to avoid that
Lung
word.
candy
If I just
off of the
embrace
third floor
it,
of my apartment
maybe it
balcony
could be
towards
something.
the children.
Hello.
Hi guys.
You are listening to the very first episode of the Haunted Heart podcast.
Quiet. Everything will be fine.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Welcome back to the Haunted Heart podcast.
a show of complete fuckery, and we've been doing it for a whole year.
A whole year. It's our birthday.
It's our birthday.
Hey, girl. Some of you guys might remember
And
we
we're
launched.
gonna cry if we want to.
Yeah, and we've been crying this
Done
week.
that. Yes, we have. A lot.
Yeah. So, yeah, we launched the show Valentine's Day 2018, and here we are, still fucking doing this. To be honest with you, I didn't think we would be, girl. Episode 51.
Was supposed to have been 52, but you know, because there are 52 weeks in a year, and we release weekly, you know, except
We almost made it,
almost. We almost made it.
but not quite.
But
Actually,
not
I think
quite.
it would have been 53 because we did 2 non-episodes.
No, it would have been 52.
Really? Because
Yeah.
I went. Remember
No,
when I went
because
to
that one
Nevada?
time, the first non-episode that we did, we
Yeah.
released the correct episode for that week after that, making it that official episode.
Oh, okay, so
But
it was
this
supposed to be
past one
52.
we didn't. We just left it at the other non-episode.
We just pissed everybody off. No.
Jesus. It's been a crazy ride this whole year.
It has.
I almost can't believe it's been a year, TBH.
Yeah. I can't believe we've been talking at you guys for a fucking year.
I'm gonna tell you what, and here's what I did. I did something. I figured up the amount of hours.
Oh.
They have been listening to us for approximately 55 hours, 46 minutes, and 36 seconds.
And that was one more second
Mm-hmm.
just now.
In that time frame, you could have become certified in CPR.
Is this legit? Like you
Yes.
looked up things that you could.
Yeah. You
Here's
could have-
everything you could have done that would have been more useful than
Yep.
listening to our
You
podcast.
could have become certified in CPR. You could have volunteered at your local food bank and donated your time to the local food shortage.
the local food shortage. Good.
Or you could have signed up for a pottery class and learned a new skill. But instead, you listened to us for that amount of time.
You know what, though? I've sworn that I will never learn how to do pottery unless Patrick Swayze teaches me in that montage from Ghost. And so
Yeah.
it looks like I'm never learning. Unless he's interested in visiting me in the afterlife.
Wow.
Which I'm open to,
Yep.
actually. Would be appropriate,
It would be.
being from the film Ghost.
Yes, it would be. It
So
would
I'm waiting
be
for
highly
that.
appropriate.
Yeah. That'll be the day that I become a potter, is when that occurs.
So
But-
she will never become a potter. And
don't
that
know.
I am thankful for.
I got dreams.
No, listen, we started out, our first episode was Jilted Lovers. And I believe also on that episode we had background noise.
We did. Someone is fucking weed eating today. So if you hear that, I'm sorry. They clearly don't know that it is our year anniversary episode Palooza that we put together for you guys and worked really hard on. So I'm sorry about that.
Yep.
But just take it, you know. On this year-long ride that we've been on, there have been ups, there have been downs, there have been weed eaters, there's been frat parties.
There's been frat parties. There's been cops.
There has been cops. So.
There have been cops called. Lots of ups and downs. I'd have to say, what was one of your favorite episodes? Like, what's one of your favorites that we've done?
I really liked the cannibalism episode. That was fun. But I think that was more fun for me than for everybody else because everybody else didn't get to hear your story and it was really awesome.
Yep.
As far as things that other people know about and not just us, one of my favorites was the Mother's Day episode when we did coffin births.
Oh,
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was fun.
Particularly gruesome.
It was. It was really the type of thing that stays with you in the night when you're trying to sleep and all you can think about is bodies bursting forth with undead fetuses. Mm-hmm. And then you have to just breathe through that.
Yeah.
And call your therapist in the morning.
I really appreciated the Night Terrors episode. That's been one of my favorites, actually. Episode 2. Terror in the Night, and I really enjoy that little series that we've got going on, which I'm sure we'll expand upon. And do different, terror in the whatever series, terror in Katie's bedroom,
which is a regular story. That's generally the theme in there.
But no, I also had a personal horror story in that one, which I really liked. So.
Yeah.
With my sleep, and we both shared those, so
story.
That's what I really appreciated, was that it was a little personal, so.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. But we are so thankful that you guys have stuck around with us. For those of you that haven't, fuck you. You're not here to hear that.
Wholeheartedly.
So you're not here to hear that. So if you've been there, we love you. If not, sashay away. No hard feelings. Except all of them.
So what are we talking about today on our year anniversary episode?
Well, we like to keep it. We're always topical.
We love a theme. We
love
love a topical theme party. It's what we're about.
Well, so obviously we're releasing this. I believe it's going to be the day before Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. Wednesday, Valentine's Day is on Thursday.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Valentine's Day?
I mean, it's cool. I like,
because on our original episode, I don't think we ever really mentioned anything about Valentine's
No,
Day.
we just low keyed it. You ain't got to be high key all the time. We were low key. We're subtle, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think Valentine's Day is. A lot of people hate on it because they're like, well, you should love your significant other if you have a significant other. Oh, now we've added a yippee dog.
Yeah,
so
of course.
You can hear that. That's great. It's a medley that we have going on for you.
A weed eater and a yapping dog.
A symphony, if you will. So a lot of people shit on Valentine's Day because they're like, well, if you have a significant other, you should love that person every day. And you should tell them every day that you love them and blah, 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 blah. But life is hard and shit gets complicated. And I do like that there's one day of the year where not just your significant other, but anybody that you care about, that you love, it's like a reminder to just reconnect with them and be like, hey, you a real one. I love you. Glad you're part of my gang or whatever. So I feel generally pretty positive about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can take it or leave it. It's one of those things where I definitely agree that, you should show your loved ones that you love them every single day. But I feel like it's a day where you can go like an extra step.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I kind of like that. Just in case shit is really busy, shit is really complicated or whatever, you can like take a day and be like, oh, I have people around me that fucking love me.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's just that extra step for me. But do I partake in that? No. So, it is what it is.
Fucking, here's what I celebrate religiously. The day after Valentine's Day. Because half price fucking candy everywhere.
Fuck yeah.
Husky Times Day,
I'm going to tell you
girl.
what, though. I don't really like Valentine's Day candy all that much because you always I don't like the sort of chocolates that you get because you get that nasty medley of bullshit.
Yeah, no.
First of all, chocolates and cherries, fucking disgusting.
Yeah, no.
You can fight me on it.
Yeah.
separately, they're amazing.
Unless it's like tempered chocolate that you've tempered over the stove and you're dipping like real actual fresh fucking cherries into it and then eating them and spitting out pits. Like, that's the only way it's acceptable. The shitty like maraschino cherries and chocolate,
The Queen
fuck
Anne's,
it.
the fucking
nasty as fuck.
The Queen Anne,
The
chocolate
Queen Anne that
covered
has
cherries.
like a maraschino cherry dipped in chocolate, but around it is like a fucking membrane of like cum. I don't know what it is. It's so nasty.
It's
There's
cherry
like so much
cum.
liquid.
It's cherry cum.
Nowhere near that amount of liquid needs to be in a chocolate covered cherry.
No, those are disgusting. Or you get
But the
weird
fresh is
ones.
really good.
Or you get some other weird ones too that I don't know, like the not strawberries, but they're like
Raspberry?
or like raspberry
Yeah.
cream. I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
fucking disgusting. So I don't really like Valentine's Day chocolates. I don't like getting them. If you give me a box of chocolates, it will sit on my counter.
No, but they're
months.
addressing that though, because like Lent truffles makes like a little Valentine's Day assortment. So like if you know where the good stuff is, you can get you some good.
Still not a fan.
And they also like Reese's has like little hearts that they
Well,
do
those
now.
are year round. I mean, yes, the
No,
Reese's,
they have like
but
the Valentine's hearts.
yeah, but the pumpkin is the better.
I mean,
better one.
definitely. We're not. That's not
Either
an argument.
the pumpkin and the Easter egg is a close second.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's not an argument. I would agree with you. Pumpkin, Easter egg, and then whatever the shit. I mean, I'm just saying 50% off a bitch is not going to turn her nose up, okay?
That's true.
Okay?
That's true.
But yeah, you can keep the
Well,
rest of
it's
Stovers.
funny though that you mentioned you said the word religiously, because I'm diving into some of that today.
Oh.
Some of our reasons why we celebrate Valentine's Day, which is pretty gruesome actually.
Cool.
if
I'm
you
into
didn't
it.
know. Yeah, so we actually celebrate the day from this guy. His name was Saint Valentine.
I could not have guessed.
Saint Valentine. So he was this old priest guy, back in ancient Rome. And he used to minister to Christians that were actively being persecuted at the time. Side note, Christians were persecuted in part because people thought that they were incestuous loving cannibals because they were feasting on the flesh of Christ.
Oh, but it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Like it was just a metaphor.
Yeah. But that wasn't communicated. So you just have, can you imagine just being your everyday Roman pagan, sitting at home and relishing in your absolute limitless paternal power? And oh, you can't, but I could.
Or you're a woman.
You can't, but I can.
In which case you're fucked.
And some Christian comes knocking on your door and you get up from reading your daily forum in Times New Roman font, no less, is what I imagine. And you answer the door, and you've got someone who goes, "Excuse me, sir, wouldst thou like to partake in the feast of this flesh?" What would you say?
I mean, me being 2019, we out here doing it. We got some New Year's
Cannibalism!
resolutions. I'm trying to be a lean-in type of bitch. So, I'm just saying, I don't feel the need to disclose my answer publicly, but I am working on being more of a lean-in type of bitch.
Okay.
And being on time. One of those things is going well.
We don't know which, though.
You know.
So, yeah, I would probably not answer the door. I'd just awkwardly just stand there and hold my hand over my wife's face. Shut up. Anyway, so it's 278 years.
Well, like how you said my wife, like it wouldn't fucking be ancient Rome version of me.
Yeah, it would be probably.
Like at any time you'd marry any woman who wasn't me.
Yeah, I came back in this life as a gay man because God was like, we're going to put a stop to this.
It's just too much power.
Too much power. So it's 278 years after Christ sashayed away. And you've got this emperor, Claudius, who is kind of a piece of shit. He became emperor after the assassination of his nephew, Caligula.
Which is a bomb-ass name.
Yeah. And was described as being extremely dim-witted, even by his own mother.
Damn.
Yeah. She had this to say about her son. Quote, "He is a monster, a man whom Mother Nature had begun to work upon, but then flung aside."
Wow.
His own mother. And his grandmother wasn't much better than that. She couldn't even look him in the face.
Why?
I don't know.
She-
And, well, when it was predicted that he would be the next emperor, she prayed that the Roman Empire would be spared such a cruel and undeserved misfortune.
Wow.
Lots of family love going on there. Really strong, close-knit family here.
That's rough, man. When your own mama says you
And
ain't
your
shit.
grandma.
And your grandmama said you
Your
ain't
grandma's
shit.
supposed to be the one to take up for you. She said, no, fuck that.
I know my grandmama took up for me. She said, you better let that baby eat as many biscuits as she wants. And that is why I am fat to this day.
Yes, ma'am. Same. But what's interesting about this guy is his dim-wittedness was actually a mask. It was kind of like a power play on his part in order to survive and eventually become emperor. And once he did become emperor, he did prove to be an extremely efficient leader, but was notably very ruthless, having eventually earned himself the moniker of Claudius the Cruel. And like many leaders, he dealt with lots of paranoia and just bad things. And those bad things caused him to do more bad things.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how, like, when really, really bad people are in power, they're, like, really, really paranoid about losing power, and they, like, project a lot of, like, paranoia about losing said power, and they communicate a lot
Yeah.
about how everybody else is really terrible.
Yeah.
They just communicate it really loudly, like on big social platforms,
Yeah.
that everyone else is beneath them.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny how that's a theme that just kind of repeats in history.
We see it throughout history.
a lot. We do see it. We see it.
And we also see the subtlety in this podcast right now. So this guy, he led many successful campaigns, with air quotes, which we know as Roman talk for war and rape and pillage and, you know, really horrible, true, vile things. It's a campaign, you know. And
Vile.
vile.
Campaigns.
Yes.
It's landing.
And he really prided himself on having a very strong army. Thing is that it was hard for him to get young men to join his army. Claudius believed that the only reason nobody wanted to join his army was because of women.
I'm sorry. Come again?
Yeah, it was because of women.
Just us?
Yeah,
Cool.
It was women.
Yep. You know, that's usually the problem.
He thought that romantic attachments made men weak and less likely to join the army or fight for a cause. So to curb this, Claudius thought it would be a brilliant idea to ban all marriages and engagements. Couldn't have them. Couldn't do it. Not allowed.
How you gonna have babies, though?
We didn't think that far ahead.
Okay. All right. I mean, well, I'm just wondering, like, we still fucking, or...
I'm sure they're still fucking.
Okay.
But you can't get married.
You just can't fuck on a committed level.
You can't, exactly.
Okay.
You can't be in love.
Okay.
You can just fuck.
Okay.
Also a theme
You know what? It's,
that we have, that we see throughout history, even today.
you know, I mean, sometimes it bees like that.
Right. So then you have this fucking guy, Valentine, right? Mm-hmm. He walked his happy ass right on up, said, "No, ma'am, not today." And he started defying the emperor by performing secret weddings for couples. But he was eventually discovered, and Claudius had him sentenced to death. Valentine was executed on February 14th in the year 270, when he was brutally beaten before having his head chopped off. Right off, clean, clear. Right off the chopping block. Now, legend has it that while in jail awaiting his sentence, Valentine became close friends with the jailer's daughter. And the night before he died, he is said to have left a goodbye note written to her, and that it was signed "From your Valentine," becoming the first Valentine's Day card ever written. And then Valentine afterwards was recognized as a patron saint of love. and was eventually given his own day, Valentine's Day, on February the 14th, which replaced a pagan festival called Lupercalia, I think that's what it's called, which was essentially another pagan, bloody, sex-filled orgy honoring Juno, the goddess of fertility. So they put that right on top, and then, now we celebrate Valentine's Day. Oh, hello, Kat. Podcat has joined us on top of the table today.
Podcat wants to be here for the year anniversary episode.
He said, blood-filled sex orgy, what?
I'm here.
So, yeah, that's the history of Valentine's Day. And Lupercalia is actually really super, kind of super scary. There's lots of blood.
Oh, really?
There's, lots of blood involved with that. Lots of blood. Lots of slapping of women, or whipping of women, I should say. So what you got to do? We talking
consensual or not?
Yeah, no, it's consensual.
Okay. Awesome,
so
groupie.
It started with
Great.
it started with a sacrifice. Because it kind of
probably not consensual.
No.
Okay.
Of an animal, usually a goat or a dog, because
Okay.
it was used in reference to the founding of Rome with Romulus and Remus. So you would sacrifice a dog, which fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And
not about that.
Essentially, you would just have, like I said, lots of blood, lots of orgies, and men would whip the women. It would be they run around naked, and the men would just have these whips and just whip the women who would partake in these events. And they would do
sounds
things,
familiar.
Yeah. And they would do things like pick names from a jar, and whoever's name the men picked, the woman got to be with for the week of the event.
Okay.
For, study time, learning your alphabet, or any number of things.
We're learning lots of things.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then it
man.
eventually got so watered down that they put clothes on, and then it just became a smacking of the hands.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, and it was funny because at the same time that Claudius was ruling, he actually, we know that the church and, the Romans had their issues.
Right.
But this was actually one movement that they completely agreed upon, because Claudius did not like the idea of men and women frolicking, because he thought it took them away out of a mindset to fight and be, a part of your country or whatever. And, the Christians were no, this doesn't work for us. So they both sort of aligned in agreement. And that's how Valentine's Day replaced the blood-filled sex orgy.
It's a goddamn shame. And now we have potlucks. You know what I mean? I mean, we could have been pulling names out of a jar and beating the fuck out of each other consensually.
And now we have Queen Anne chocolate-covered cherries and cheap Valentine's Day
cheesecake
and boxed cards and little fat baby cupids.
Which are creepy, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely creepy.
But more creepy than what was that movie in the 90s? Was it not My Bloody Valentine? Not My Bloody Valentine. I think it was called Cupid. It was a horror movie. It was a slasher movie. I can't remember the name of it, but the guy wore a cherub face mask, and it was very terrifying.
Really?
I think it was maybe called just Valentine's Day or My Valentine or something like that. I'd have to look into it, but yeah.
Because My Bloody Valentine is fucking amazing. I love that movie.
Yeah, it wasn't My Bloody Valentine.
I love the original, and I love the Jensen Ackles remake, because Jensen Ackles hot as fuck.
Fuck yes.
And you know what? I'd do him, even in that movie. Oh no, it's fine. We'll be okay. Just go to the doctor, get us some medicine, and it'll be okay.
Oh, it was Valentine, and it was in 2001.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's cool. We'll have to check that one out.
So, yeah.
Okay.
What do you got for us today on this, our anniversary?
Hang on 1 second.
So what do you have in store for us today?
Well, this is our 1 year anniversary episode.
Is it? I didn't know that.
And yeah, it is. Breaking news. So I was kind of thinking in the vein of anniversaries. And And at first I was thinking like, oh, well, probably there's like crazy stories about like people like kind of like a jilted lovers angle of like people being murdered on their anniversaries or whatever. So I kind of started doing research for that. Found out there's actually not a lot of stories like that. What there is a lot of really fucking sad stories of people like in horrible war-torn countries who are like killed like by like warfare accidentally on their anniversaries. So that was a fucking bummer, even for me. And so I sort of abandoned that route. And then I realized that it's 2019. And 2019 happens to be the 50th anniversary of the Manson murders.
Oh, fuck.
So...
You didn't do that for our 50, our 50th, number 50 episode. You brought that shit here
I did.
last week where you said, oh, we may or may not cover that. And you
did.
brought it today.
I did.
God damn it.
And interestingly enough, I did not, like when we did the episode last week on the gradations of evil, and I was talking about Michael Stone's evil scale, and I talked about how he and I disagreed on Charlie Manson. I did not know yet that I was going to be covering Charlie Manson this week. I was like, we'll probably talk about that at some point. And then I realized that it's the 50th anniversary.
So this is kind of a first for us because we don't typically cover, larger, well-known stuff.
Right, because there's a ton of podcasts that have covered, there's a ton of podcasts that have covered the big serial killers, your Bundys, your Gacy's, like a lot of folks have talked about that. A lot of folks can do the research better than us, have more resources than us to do that. But Charlie Manson is a special case because a lot of the research that I find about him tells a tale that I don't necessarily believe is true. And a lot of my research today, I'm going to walk you through this as a gift to you for 1 year.
Is it a gift?
It's something.
Is it a gift?
It don't come with a gift receipt, honey, so you can't return it. I'm sorry.
You might want to be telling our listeners that.
Yeah. So a lot of coverage of Charlie Manson tells this story of this criminal mastermind, this like crazy, intelligent, charismatic, the same story that we're hearing right now about Ted fucking Bundy, right? Mm-hmm. I disagree.
Unpopular opinion.
A lot of the research that I've done today was pulled from an amazing series that Last Podcast on the Left did on Charles Manson. It's really funny. It's amazing, but listen to it after my story because it's better than me. So let me go first. But yeah, I have to give credit to Marcus and Henry and Ben for a lot of that research because, they did a really great job with it.
Fucking bomb as fuck.
Yeah, they did a bomb as fuck job. So definitely check that out if you haven't heard it after this episode.
And we're just gonna do a bomb job.
And we're gonna do the job that we can with what we have. All right? Okay. So that said, this is a incredibly detailed story. There's a lot of details that we're gonna kind of bounce over. So if you are a Manson head and I skip some details that are important to you, I'm very sorry. I'm sure you'll email me.
Or leave a review.
And now we're diving in.
All right, I've got my swimming trunks on.
Okay. So, Charles Manson was born on November 12th, 1940. Then I already fucked up. Let me get my Ken Burns voice on.
Ooh.
Charles Manson was born on November 12th, 1934, to 16-year-old Kathleen Maddox.
I think that makes him a Scorpio.
I think so. That sounds right for his personality.
I think that makes him a Sagittarius.
Oh, okay. I would have thought he would be a Scorpio, but maybe not. He loved the bush like a Scorpio, so I don't know.
No, we don't have to take that back.
Charles Manson was born on November 12th, 1934, to 16-year-old Kathleen Maddox.
November 12th. I think that makes him a Scorpio.
That sounds about right for his personality. Definitely a Scorpio.
Yeah, they're very sexual beings. Mm-hmm. Those people.
And Manson loved the bush. 100%. That's what the moral of this story is.
Bush?
He just fucking loved the bush. So, he's born to 16-year-old mom, right? Single mom. he was first named No Name Maddox. And that is literally what's written on his birth certificate.
That has got to have some effects.
Severe psychological consequences, resulting in a potential search for fame and identity for the rest of his life, which would eventually lead him down a murderous path. Who knows?
Possibly.
Let's find out. So on his birth certificate, he's labeled No Name Maddox, but within weeks, he was called Charles Mills Maddox.
Okay.
So his biological father, we're thinking, is Colonel Walker Henderson Scott Sr.
That's a long name.
Yes. And the reason that people think that is because Kathleen Maddox filed a paternity suit against him, which resulted in a judgment in 1937. But Manson, regardless, never knew his father. This Colonel Scott Sr. guy worked intermittently in local mills, but he did have a reputation for being a local con artist. So he basically allowed Kathleen Maddox to believe that he was an army colonel, although colonel in his name was just his given name. Like, literally, his name was Colonel. like his mama looked at him as a baby and said, Colonel.
So like the Colonel from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes. Like first name Colonel, last name Scott
Chicken.
Sr. Like last name Fried Chicken. Yes. So when she told him that she was pregnant, he told her that he had been called away on army business. You know when army business comes calling.
Oh, really? That is just suspicious.
So he was called away on army business, and several months after she realized that he wasn't coming back.
Really? What gave her the clue?
He wasn't coming back. Several months. So
a suspicious letter arrives, and it's like, I'm sorry, but the colonel is dead. And it's just written in like
crayon. And spelled wrong. Bye.
Bye.
Love the admiral. Like
love the U.S. government.
Love Uncle Sam.
All right.
So in August 1934, right before Charlie Manson was born, his mom, Kathleen, married William Eugene Manson, whose occupation listed on Charles' birth certificate was a laborer at a dry cleaning business. And Kathleen Maddox, let me tell you, she was a fun bitch.
Oh, really?
But a terrible mom.
Okay. I think those two kind of go hand in hand sometimes.
Hey, we both had fun moms that were good moms.
Yeah, but I think that they're an anomaly.
This is next level though. Kathleen would go drinking. She would go on drinking
I think
sprees.
what you're thinking about is party mom.
That's true. Yeah.
Not fun mom, but party mom.
Yeah, we had fun mom. Party mom is like where we're getting into some dangerous area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't want to be party mom.
No.
You want to be fun mom. But it's a fine line.
But if you are a party mom, please email us at the our podcast at gmail.com.
So Kathleen would go on drinking sprees for days at a time with her brother, Luther, and she would leave Charles with all kinds of different babysitters, whoever she could find to basically pawn him off on for a couple hours. She and William Eugene were divorced on April 30th, 1937, so the marriage lasted about a little less than 3 years, when a court accepted William Eugene's charge of, quote, gross neglect of duty.
Oh.
Which I would have to agree with.
Gross neglect of duty. Great.
So on August 1st of 1939, Kathleen is hanging out with Luther, her brother, and his girlfriend, Julia Vickers. And they had spent the evening drinking with a new acquaintance that they had made named Frank Martin. And Frank Martin appeared to be Mr. Moneybags. He had a little bit of coin.
He had money.
He had a little bit of coin. So Kathleen and her brother's girlfriend, Julia Vickers, decided to rob Frank. And Kathleen phoned her brother to help. But they were like really fucking stupid thieves. Like they just did a terrible job and they were found out and arrested within hours.
Okay.
So they were taken to jail. At the trial, 7 weeks later, Luther, Kathleen's brother, was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Kathleen was sentenced to 5 years. So
Okay.
Manson, his mom has now gone to prison.
Yeah.
And he was placed in the home of an aunt and uncle in McMecken, West Virginia.
McMecken.
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 Okay.
You got to kind of mumble it a little bit in that.
McMecken.
You know, yeah, West Virginia way. Like you don't open your mouth quite.
McMecken.
Just kidding. I love you, West Virginia. I've spent a lot of time in you. So Kathleen's paroled in 1942. Manson stays with his aunt and uncle during that time. And he says that the period right after Kathleen returns from prison, when they were all living with his aunt and uncle in West Virginia, was the happiest time of his life.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. That is from his book, Manson in My Own Words, or in his own words. I think it's called In His Own Words. A lot of this research is pulled from there, by the way.
Oh.
Manson in His Own Words. It's a good book.
Okay.
Read it. It's mostly bullshit, but that's Charlie Manson. All right. So shortly thereafter, Manson's family moves to Charleston, West Virginia, where Manson continually played truant. Do you like that copy paste word?
Truant. Truant. So
Truant.
that means he skipped school.
Yes. And his mother spent her evenings drinking.
Was he going? So I've been to Charlestown. Mm-hmm. They've got a great casino there. Were they hitting up the casinos?
No. I don't think it's Charlestown. I think it's Charleston.
Oh, I thought you said Charlestown.
No.
Well,
Charleston.
Charlestown has a great
It does.
casino.
Truly it does.
That you should go to if you don't have a gambling addiction.
Yeah, if you don't. If you do, you know who you are. Don't go, please. It's a very specific call out. All right. So Kathleen spends her nights drinking. Not very long after they get there, she's arrested for grand larceny. Again, somebody has some sticky fingers. But she's not convicted. Later, they move to Indianapolis, and Maddox, his mom, Kathleen Maddox, starts attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings where she meets a fellow alcoholic named Lewis, who she married in August of 1943. It's this period of time that Manson, in addition to skipping school, he starts stealing from stores and from his home. In 1947, Kathleen was looking for a temporary foster home for Manson, but she wasn't able to find a suitable one. So she basically... So Manson's mom spends the majority of his childhood trying to pawn him off on literally anybody who will take him, right?
Right.
So when she's unable to find a temporary foster home for him, she decides to send him to the, and I may pronounce this wrong, the Jabalt School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana. And this is a school for male delinquents that's run by Catholic priests.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So after being there for just a short while, Manson fled home to his mother, but she took him back to the school and dropped him off again.
Mother of the year here.
Yeah. She's kind of a pill. So
I love that. Nobody ever uses that anymore.
well, what can I tell you? I'm a classic bitch.
She's a pill.
She's kind of a pill. I'll have a Tom Collins, thanks. So Manson goes back to Jabal. His mom drops him off there again. 10 months later, he runs away to Indianapolis. And instead of returning to his mother, because that went so well the first time,
Right.
He rented a room and supported himself by robbing stores at night. So eventually he was caught, and a sympathetic judge sent him to Boys Town, which was a juvenile facility in Omaha, Nebraska. But Manson didn't want to be there either. After only 4 days, he and a student named Blackie Nielsen stole a car and somehow obtained a gun. And they used the gun to rob a grocery store and a casino. And they made their way to the home of Blackie Nielsen's uncle in Peoria, Illinois. So we're really just
We're
road
just
tripping.
going all around. We're
Oh, yeah.
stealing. We're stealing. We're on a nice little road trip here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Nielsen's uncle was a professional thief.
Oh, great.
And so when Manson and Nielsen arrived, he apparently took them on as apprentices in thieving. and thievery.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's great. The adults in this story are really great.
I'm like, damn. Can we? Is there a pattern of behavior here? I think so.
So 2 weeks later, Manson was arrested. So clearly, Nielsen's uncle just pointing out, not that good of a thief, because Manson got arrested 2 weeks later. He was arrested during a nighttime raid on a store that they were robbing in Peoria, Illinois. In the investigation that followed, he was linked to 2 earlier armed robberies, and because of that, he was sent to Indiana Boys School, which was a very, very strict reform school. Now, we've seen that Manson, at this point in his life, has been to several facilities that are for juvenile delinquents.
Haven't really had anything work out so far.
No, it's a theme. But the Indiana Boys School is by far the strictest one of these. Indiana Boys School there's a lot of talk about this being a formative time in young Charles Manson's life. He claimed that other students raped him at the Indiana Boys School with the encouragement of a staff member. He claimed that they would line the boys up and just beat them. And they would just scream and cry. And staff members would beat them until they cried. Manson, while he was there, talked about developing a self-defense technique that he called the insane game. When he was physically unable to defend himself, he would just start screaming and screeching and grimace and wave his arms to convince his aggressors that he was insane. And it worked. A lot of times that, he claims that a lot of times that would get people to leave him alone.
Okay.
So after a number of failed attempts, he escaped with 2 other boys from the Indiana Boys School in February of 1951. But he talks a lot about the Indiana Boys School and about how the abuse that was incurred there. He doesn't necessarily make those connections, but it's clear that that's when he first learned to project an identity
I see where you're
outward
going.
To protect himself.
Right.
So very pivotal. So he and 2 other boys escape in February 1951, and they are attempting to drive to California in stolen cars. Got arrested in Utah. They had robbed several gas stations along the way, kind of making a...
Maybe this isn't the life for you. I would have to say that I would honestly, after my how many times has this been arrested?
I have lost count. I think it's like 4. Yeah.
4 times.
Yeah.
After my 4th time, I'd be like,
yeah,
maybe I'm not cut out for this.
Maybe not. And apparently they didn't think so either, because driving a stolen car across state lines is a federal crime. So this time, yes. So if you steal a car, you better stay within state lines.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, just file that away. But because of that, Manson breaking a federal law, he was sent to Washington, D.C.,
Damn, we over here now.
Yes, to the National Training School for Boys. So on arrival there, he was given aptitude tests, and they found that he was illiterate and that his IQ was 109.
Of course he's illiterate. He hasn't even been in fucking school.
So at the time, but that's interesting, he's totally illiterate, but his IQ is 109, and at the time the national average was 100.
So he was slightly above average.
Yeah. So he's like, not
really average, but
right, not necessarily the criminal mastermind that we're kind of conceiving of him as, right?
Seems like he's an average intelligence, but with below average, like he seems like he might have average street smarts, not above average. You see what I'm saying?
Can we say that? He has been arrested 4 times. I'm not sure that the street smarts are really that high. But you know what I'm saying?
But you know what I'm saying? He's not formal education smart, but he's average criminal streets.
Right.
You know what I mean? Average. You still get caught, obviously.
Right.
You're not above average intelligence with anything.
Right. Yes.
You could have probably been great if you would have went to school,
Maybe.
and studied, and maybe had, a decent mother.
Yeah.
But,
Literally anybody to believe in you. Yeah.
yeah.
So his caseworker at that time deemed him aggressively antisocial.
Oh God.
So, on a psychiatrist's recommendation, Manson was transferred in October 1951 to Natural Bridge Honor Camp, which was a minimum security institution. His aunt visited him and told administrators that she would let him stay at her house and would help him find work after he got out. Manson had a parole hearing that was scheduled for February 1952. So, potentially an opportunity for him to kind of like get out of prison, go live with his aunt. Like, she's promised to help him find work and blah, blah, blah. Right?
Yeah.
It's looking great. It's looking like it might be a path. But then in January of 1952, we just take a harsh left when Manson is caught raping a boy at knife point.
Oh no.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot of talk of how this is holdover from behavior that was learned at Boys Town.
From that crazy, strict.
That like in that school, you were either a rapist or you were being raped. And a lot of times the roles reversed quite frequently. But there is an argument, and I think Manson kind of lays the groundwork for this, so we should definitely take it with a grain of salt. There is an argument that he did that in a play to establish himself, right, as an aggressor, not as somebody who's going to be bullied or kicked around or whatever.
With who?
At this facility, at this minimum security institution, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
like he comes through the door and wants to like be the fucking big man on campus, which apparently translates to raping people.
Okay.
Again, that's something that Manson laid most of the argument for, and so I don't know that we definitely take it with a grain of salt, but
Right.
I can see it is a well-known pattern that the abused become abusers.
Yeah.
Not all the time, not always, but that is an outcome, right?
Yeah.
Of dealing with, or rather not dealing with, that kind of trauma.
Right.
So after that happened, he was transferred to the Federal Reformatory in Petersburg, Virginia. There, he committed 8 further serious disciplinary offenses, 3 of which involved homosexual acts.
Interesting.
And it wasn't
Are we talking about
the
rape or
right?
is it...
The quote says homosexual acts. It was not like call me by your name. It was like rape. Like this is like rape.
So he was just
This is
raping
not,
guys.
Yeah.
It was not a homosexual
It's not.
act.
It was not
rape.
Yeah, I said it that way because of the quote, but you're right. It's the way that they say it in this quote because of the time period. A homosexual act was like worse than.
Oh, he's not
saying fucking
raping.
rape.
He's just being
Yeah.
gay.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
What?
he's just a homo. Yeah, no. He was definitely raping people. Sorry to laugh on that. That seems weird, but you're here with us and you understand that we don't condone rape.
No, but I mean, I think it's just
Interesting
laughing
that
at
they
the fact of the craziness
Right.
of how they worded that.
Right, that homosexual acts is worse than saying
Right.
rape.
Ridiculous.
Yes.
But okay.
Gotta love the 50s. So, Manson, after those 8 disciplinary offenses, was moved to another maximum security reformatory at, and I'm definitely going to fuck this one up, Chillicothe, Ohio,
Okay.
where he was expected to remain until his release on his 21st birthday in November of 1955. Good behavior led to an early release for him, which is interesting that he had good behavior there because he seems to have fucking had good behavior
No
nowhere.
behavior. Yeah, like no good behavior.
But he got out on good behavior in May of 1954 and went to live with his aunt and uncle back in West Virginia. So in January of 1955, Manson tries to kind of like go straight during this period, right?
No
Not in a
homosexual
sexual-
acts this
No.
time?
Not in a sexual sense. I mean, no criminal acts.
Okay.
But I guess also technically, yes. In January of 1955, he marries a hospital waitress named Rosalie Jean Willis.
A hospital waitress?
Yes.
Is that a profession?
I think it was back in the day. Like, she worked in the hospital.
Like at the
as
cafeteria?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was a cafeteria lady.
I believe. We can say
Okay.
that. We can say that conclusively. But I will just say Rosalie Jean, definitely from West Virginia. God bless her heart. You know?
Okay.
I love it. I love that name. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So around October, about 3 months after he and pregnant Rosalie Jean arrived in Los Angeles in a car that he had stolen in Ohio.
Great.
So we took a shift, right?
Thought we were doing good here for a second.
It didn't work out.
Did she know it was stolen?
Unclear, but probably
Okay.
yes. But I mean, honestly, Rosalie Jean seems like real sweet, and I don't know that. I think it might have been one of those situations where Charlie showed up at the house with a car, and we just didn't question how he got it.
He got the car.
We just were excited.
Somebody
for
gave
him.
it to me.
Right. And yeah. So
He performed a homosexual act.
maybe.
And someone gave him a car.
Well, that wouldn't be illegal. Unfortunately, he stole it. So 3 months after he and his pregnant wife arrive in Los Angeles in the stolen car, Manson was again charged with a federal crime for having taken the stolen car
God
across
damn, you
fucking
didn't learn
state
the
lines.
first time?
So after a psychiatric evaluation, he was given 5 years probation. Seems like a great break, right?
So no jail time.
Probation, 5 years probation. However, he failed to appear at the LA hearing
God.
on an identical charge that was
Damn
filed
it.
in Florida, and that resulted in his arrest in March of 1956 in Indianapolis. So this fucker is bouncing around everywhere.
I mean, shit. You're doing a lot, sir.
At this point, his probation is revoked, and he's sentenced to 3 years imprisonment at Terminal Island, San Pedro, California.
Okay.
Okay. So while he's in prison, Rosalie gives birth to their first son, Charles Manson Jr.
God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. During Manson's first year at Terminal Island, Manson received visits from Rosalie and his mom, who were now living together in LA, raising his son.
And Charlie's mom.
Charlie's mom, yes.
Okay, so
Charlie's
they were living together, raising
Yes, Kathleen.
Yeah, so they were raising the boy together.
Right, Junior.
God.
So in March 1957, Rosalie quits coming to see him. And his mother informs him that Rosalie is living with another man.
Oh, okay.
So she's moved on.
Yeah, okay. Go you, Rosalie.
Less than 2 weeks before a scheduled parole hearing, Manson tried to escape by stealing a car. Ostensibly, he says to talk to Rosalie.
I'm just going to talk to her.
Yeah.
I'm just going to talk to her. I'm not going to hurt her. I'm just going to talk to her. Yeah, great.
But he was caught and given 5 years probation, and his parole was denied.
Dude, stealing cars, not in your future.
This is not gone in 60 seconds for you.
The
You are not
cards-
Nick Cage. You cannot pull it.
The cards are laid out, and your wheel of fortune is reversed, sir.
You got it when it comes
You
to
have no
cars.
wheels. You have no wheels, no wheel of fortune. There are no wheels in your future, sir.
Just avoid wheels altogether.
Damn, learn your lesson, sir. You really are not very intelligent.
So that's kind of a point. Thank you for making that point for me. So in 1958, Rosalie.
I just imagine you've got this scene where the cop's like waiting to arrest him, and then there's Charlie Manson who's like staring down the cop, and like reaching his hand out to the car,
reaching for
and
the car door.
The cop's like, "Don't do it, don't do it," and Charlie's like,
I'm gonna touch the
I'm
butt.
"I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." The cop's like, "I will fucking arrest you if you do this. Don't do it.
Literally, just don't.
Just don't do
We're
it.
so tired of you.
Don't touch the car."
If you could just not.
And he just, and then he just grabs it, and then there's just like, God damn it. And then there's tasers and shit. And yeah, that's what I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably pretty accurate, minus the tasers. I don't think they had those yet. So in 1958,
Nightsticks, beat him.
True. In 1958, Rosalie formally divorces Charlie while he's still in jail. Or, I'm sorry, he's not in jail. He's on parole at this time. By November of that same year, Charlie was pimping a 16-year-old girl and was receiving additional support from a girl with wealthy parents. So we're already seeing...
He's surrounding himself with people that...
specifically women,
Yeah.
right? because he's got this 16-year-old girl that he's basically acting as a pimp for, right? And he's getting additional support from a girl that he's seeing who has wealthy parents. So we're already kind of starting to see that emerge.
Yeah.
In September of 1959, he pleaded guilty to a charge of attempting to cash a forged U.S. Treasury check, which he claimed to have stolen from a mailbox. But then later that charge was dropped. He also received a 10-year suspended sentence and probation after a young woman named Leona, who had an arrest record for prostitution. They always have to tell you that, right?
Yeah.
She was a sex worker. Great.
She had a record for prostitution.
Think poorly of her.
She was a whore.
Yeah, great. Just make sure that you think poorly of her before they tell you. Yeah. So he got a 10-year suspended sentence and probation after she made a tearful plea before the court that she and Manson were deeply in love and that she would marry Charlie if he was freed. So basically he's like getting into trouble, and she is advocating on his behalf that she loves him and they'll get married and yada, yada, yada. Before the year's end, Leona did marry Manson, but it's possible that she only did so that she wouldn't be required to testify against him. So Manson kind of skirts the check issue somewhat and is on probation. And so he takes Leona and another woman to New Mexico for the purposes of sex work, of prostitution. And then in New Mexico, there's this whole big thing with check fraud. Like, that comes back again. But there's nothing less sexy than check fraud. So we're going to skip all of that and just gloss right over it so that we can get to the murder. Okay?
Yeah.
Sound like a good deal?
Yeah.
Suffice it to say that the check fraud stuff landed Manson in prison at the U.S. Penitentiary at McNeil Island in Washington State through March of 1967. By the time of his release, on March 21st, 1967, Manson had spent more than half of his 32 years in prisons or institutions.
I'm like, damn, it's not... How many chances do you have to get? Why can't you just throw the book at him?
Right, more than half. So actually, when they went to release him, he told the authorities that prison had become his home, and he requested permission to stay. But, of course, that wasn't possible. So they released him.
Until he goes out to the parking lot and steals a car.
All right. So Manson at this point is 32 years old. Again, he spent more than half of his life in prison. Again, I'm restating that he spent more of
He's 32 years old
half
again.
of his life in prison. Yeah. I mean, that just boggles the mind that you can get to like 32 and you've literally spent half of that time in a facility of some kind.
Yeah. Can't relate.
So when he gets released, he gets permission to move to San Francisco, where with the help of one of his prison acquaintances, he moves into an apartment in Berkeley, California. In prison, a bank robber who he had met named Alvin Karpus had taught him to play the steel guitar. And Manson loved playing guitar. He loved music. He was big into music. He had huge dreams of becoming this big, like, music star. Like, he wanted to be a rock star. That was his dream.
Baby.
Yes. And we're actually going to play, at the end of this episode, we're actually going to play you guys one of Manson's songs. And it's actually legit Charles Manson. If you have Spotify, there's a Charles Manson playlist, and it's literally him.
Are we sure we're trying to do that?
Yeah.
That seems a little bit, like, glorifying to me.
No. We're going to shit on him. It's terrible music. It's not, okay. It's not the worst, but it's, like, not remarkable. It's kind of the, like, acoustic. Manson is the fucking guy who walks around with his fucking acoustic guitar everywhere he goes and is always, like, playing his guitar, trying to get attention and shit. That's Manson.
Okay.
That's him. But he's mediocre.
Okay.
At best.
So we're going to play you his mediocre
Yeah.
music.
I mean, I didn't say next up we're going to have a rockin' tune from a hot cat named Charles Manson.
That's kind of what I
Charlie M. No, I'm just going to play it for you guys because a lot of people haven't heard it.
This
and it's
episode
interesting.
took a turn.
Yeah. No. Plot twist, I'm a Manson girl. No, I'm kidding.
Me.
No, I'm just going to play it for you guys because I think it might be interesting. And if you don't want to listen to it, don't. It's the beauty of podcasts. So at this time, Manson is living mostly by begging. He meets Mary Brunner, a 23-year-old graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who is working as a library assistant at UC Berkeley at the time. And the two hit it off. They
How do you just hit it off with Charles Manson?
I mean, but it happens a lot. Again, we saw, when he was released from prison earlier in life, Leona, we saw that with her and
He's
with
just-
these women he was pimping out.
He's
He
just
must
sitting
have
there
had something.
playing his steel guitar very poorly, and she's just like looking at him with the utmost admiration.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, I've got to get me some of that.
I mean, basically. Here's the thing, though. Mary Brunner was not the most, how do we say this? She wasn't going on a lot of dates. She wasn't getting a lot of attention, let's just say. So when she met Manson, he made her feel important. And she was kind of invested right away because, he's...
Because attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody loves attention.
Yeah.
So shortly after they meet, he moves in with her, which is how all great love stories start. And according to a secondhand account, he overcame her resistance to his bringing other women in to live with them. So before long, Mary Brunner was sharing her residence with Manson and 18 other women.
Fuck. 18 other women?
18.
All right, I could maybe see bringing in another bitch, right? I mean, whatever. I could see, all right, whatever.
It's poly. It's
Poly,
it's open.
yeah,
we are not judging.
I get
100%
that. I'm not
judging.
Polyamorous, whatever. 2, 3.
But 18.
18?
And it's an apartment, baby.
Listen, that's greedy.
Yeah.
That's just greedy.
That's a lot.
No, I don't love 8. I don't have 18 people in my life that I love
True.
that much. No.
True.
You think I'm going to have 18 people up in my motherfucking house? No.
Yeah.
I see where we're getting the cults bit.
That is his core. Once he pulls those
What
18
did he
in.
have? I'm just trying to was there a magic dick or something involved? Like, what was it?
By all accounts, his dick was average. But I think he just had that, I will say, if you look at pictures of young Charlie Manson when he had, the facial hair or whatever, he did not look clean. We would definitely need to, shower you in, scalding hot water to burn all that off, all that nasty off. But, he wasn't unattractive. He kind of had, a roguish charm about him. And there's a little bit of, mystique to...
And about 37 different arrest records.
True, true. I mean, we women are a giving sex, and we sometimes give
And
too
they
fucking
were
much.
giving sex.
And they were. But I can see it. I mean, I don't judge them too harshly because, I can see it.
I mean, if it's
He kinda
consensual,
has
do
that-
what you want. But I just think 18 is just a bit excessive.
It's a lot. So this kind of ushers in the period where Manson has established himself as a guru in San
Of
Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, which was kind of
Haight-Ashbury?
Haight-Ashbury, yeah. It was a big deal.
Okay. Oh, but it's still a guru of what?
Just free love, right? Because it's 1967, right? The summer of love is in high,
And there's the theme.
string. Yeah, there you go. So
We're crushing love for you today.
Yes,
Because we all know what's going to happen.
the person you love is going to be a horrible, murder
Cult
guru.
leader.
Yeah. 1967. It's the perfect time for a guy like Manson, right? In San Francisco, in the Haight-Ashbury district, everybody is kind of feeling the hippie culture, and he kind of sets himself up as this spiritual guru, and this is where we get the founding members of the Manson family. Manson taught his followers that they were the reincarnation of the original Christians, and that the Romans were the establishment.
Another connection.
So the man is from the Romans. They're descendant from the Romans. And Manson's followers are descendant from the original Christians, supposedly. Manson strongly implied that he was Christ. He often told a story about envisioning himself being on the cross with nails in his feet and his hands. And sometime around 1967, he started using the alias Charles Willis Manson. And he often said it really slowly. So it sounded more like Charles Will is man's son.
That sounds like some shit that you were smoking
Son
some
of
shit.
God.
Like, no, that sounds like you were probably smoking some shit and you were like fucking 10 fucking stratospheres in the sky. And you were like,
Or
Charles
tripping balls.
Will is man's son. You know what I mean?
It probably sounded a lot like
that's
that.
Like, that's what I pictured.
So implying, obviously, there that his will is the same as that.
Do you think
of the
that would
Son of
be
Man,
his
Jesus?
His Insta handle if he had never?
Definitely would have been. Definitely would have been.
That'd be his Insta
Absolutely.
handle today? Yeah.
And he'd have underscores between it so that you could be really sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before that summer ended, Manson and about 8 or 9 of his most hardcore enthusiasts,
8, 9, 10, 20.
8 or 9 of them, they pile into an old school bus that they had kind of redesigned.
Did they stole? Did he steal it?
I think they bought that one.
Oh,
I think they bought
For the
it,
first time in
yeah.
our life, we have legally purchased a vehicle.
Because I think somebody else gave him the money to get it. I think they did buy it. They like pooled all their money.
She's like, Charlie, no, we don't have to steal.
We don't have to steal it this time.
He's like, I'll steal it. I'll go get one right now.
I'll just get it.
No, I'll buy it.
Let's just buy it.
Manson is shook.
He's triggered. Yeah, so they redo this.
He's like, I don't know how this process works.
They redo this old school. Charles Manson just like sitting in a car dealership, just like trying not to be like itchy, like just whoa,
Fuck, man.
whoa,
Whoa.
yeah. So they redo this school bus, which honestly, I understand that it's like dirty and hippie and gross, but like that's kind of goals for me. Like I definitely want to, at some point in my life, like redo the interior of a school bus and like complete Southern living like fabulousness. Definitely goals for me. So I'm working on that. You guys, you can email us at thehauntedheartpodcast@gmail.com
We have
if you'd
a
like to
haunted
join
heart
me.
bus.
If you'd like to join me on our school bus.
What if we had a bus? We redid it. It's
Like
the
a
Haunted
party
Heart
bus.
bus, and we podcast in the bus as we travel America.
Incredible. And if you want to help us realize this dream, you can go to patreon.com
We add a new
/
level.
the haunted heart.
We're gonna add a new level,
That's a seat
a
on the
new
bus.
goal. Yeah. Yes, tickets.
So they have their bus, and they go. So at that point, they start traveling, right? They roam as far as north as Washington State, and then they go southward through Los Angeles, Mexico, and the Southwest, and then returning to LA, they lived right around Topanga Canyon, Malibu, and Venice, which is in the western part of LA.
You were just taking us all across the entire
I am.
fucking
It's
United
a
States
fucking
today.
trip, dude. Buckle up. So in 1967, Mary Brenner becomes pregnant by Manson. And on April 15th of 1968, she gives birth to a son that she named Valentine Michael.
Oh my God, so thematic.
Synchronicities.
Yes!
I didn't even
This
plan
worked
this.
better than I thought it
I
was
didn't even
going
plan
to
it.
at the start of this.
I thought it was going to be a fucking nightmare. Thank you for the confidence vote. Appreciate it. So Valentine Michael, nicknamed Pooh Bear, is born in a condemned house in Topanga Canyon.
Were they squatters?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, during this time
So they
period,
bought
they were.
the bus, stole the home.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they're just squatting there. They're just using it.
Okay.
So, and you know, having babies in it and stuff, like you do. So Mary Brenner was assisted during the birth by several of the young women from the Manson family. She gives birth to Pooh Bear in this condemned house, and that's where we are.
Okay.
So weirdly, the events that would eventually culminate in the murders were set in motion in late spring of 1968 when Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys...
What?
Right. It's so weird. The Beach Boy connection thing is so strange. So Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, who was by all intents and by all accounts, kind of a quirky guy.
Yeah.
He picks up two hitchhiking Manson women, Patricia Krenwinkel and Ella Jo Bailey. And he brings them to his Pacific Palisades house for a couple hours. And then I guess he let them spend the night there or something. Or maybe he let them go after a couple hours. But whatever happened, he came home in the early hours of the following morning from a night recording session. And he was greeted in the driveway of his own house by Manson himself.
Oh, fuck.
And Manson just emerges from his house, from Dennis Wilson's house. So, you get home.
And some fucker just comes out your front
door.
And
this fucking, hippie Jesus-looking motherfucker just walks out of your house, down your driveway to greet you. No.
Hey, sir, how's it going? Can you just imagine?
Well, it was a little weirder than shaking hands. Manson reportedly, after Wilson asked Manson whether he intended to hurt him, Manson knelt down to the ground and began kissing Wilson's feet.
Huh.
Inside the house, Wilson discovered 12 strangers, mostly women. So the account that was given in Manson in his own words is that Manson had first met Dennis Wilson at a friend's house in San Francisco where Manson had gone to buy weed. They bumped into each other there.
Okay.
And the drummer supposedly gave Manson his address on Sunset Boulevard. Kind of cool. And invited him to stop by whenever he came to Los Angeles. And Dennis Wilson himself actually said in a 1968 Record Mirror article that after mentioning, he said that the Beach Boys had worked with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which I have no idea what that was. I think it's a hippie thing. But he said that there was overlap there, that some of the Manson women had been involved with this yogi. And they had told Dennis Wilson that they too had a guru who was named Charlie.
Okay.
So Dennis Wilson confirmed at least that he had heard of Charles Manson in passing.
Okay.
So over the next couple months, somehow Manson convinces Dennis Wilson to just let the Manson family live with him in this mansion in the Palisades.
Okay.
So over the next couple months, the number of women in Dennis Wilson's house doubled.
Fuck.
Manson family members made themselves completely part of his Sunset Boulevard house, and they cost him approximately $100,000, which that number included a large medical bill for treatment of their gonorrhea. And, right? Because one of the things about the Manson family is Charlie is pimping out all of these women. The reason that they have money and can eat sometimes is because he's pimping these women out.
And can eat sometimes.
Right. So the gonorrhea thing is a reality of the cult.
Right. We're just going to say they're not clean.
Yeah, we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot. So an additional $21,000 for the destruction of Dennis Wilson's uninsured car, which the Manson family had borrowed. Wilson would apparently sing and talk with Manson while the women were treated as servants to them both.
Okay.
Wilson apparently paid for studio time to record songs that were written and performed by Manson. Wilson also introduced Manson to entertainment business acquaintances. And this is kind of the time when Manson is feeling... Remember, I told you that he has that dream of becoming a recording star.
Yeah.
He wants to be the fucking... He wants to be a rock star.
The very best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So at this time, he's really close to that dream in his mind. And he's out there, meeting these people. Dennis Wilson introduced him to Greg Jacobson, Terry Melcher, Rudy Altobelli, all these famous people. And Rudy Altobelli actually owned a house that he would soon rent to actress Sharon Tate and her husband, Roman Polanski. So there's the connection there. So Charlie is getting Greg Jacobson, who's like this music producer guy, was reportedly impressed by the whole Charlie Manson package, which is in quotes, of like an artist, like philosopher type guy. And he had made some offhand comment to Manson, I think. I'm sure that it was like, oh yeah, like I'd love to have you come into the studio and yeah, we'll definitely knock out a record. Like, but to Manson, that was like a solid promise, right?
Yeah.
That was like my fucking dream.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing it, right?
Yeah.
So a couple months after moving in a very strange manner with Dennis Wilson, Dennis Wilson's producer or like manager kicks them out. He's like, you can't fucking do this. Like, you can't pay to support these people living in your fucking house. Like, what are you doing? They have to fucking go. And so he kicks all of them out. So they're on the street again.
Was he getting in on the action?
Who?
The Beach Boys guy?
Oh, I'm sure.
That, like, it was a plus?
I mean, we can say allegedly he was, but I mean, the women are basically servants to him and Manson, so I can't imagine that he's not, but I can't confirm for sure that he is.
Got
Does that
it.
make sense?
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. Allegedly. Suspicious, we'll say, and put a pin in it. So at this point, they're homeless again. Shortly thereafter, Manson establishes a base for the group at Span's Movie Ranch, which is not far from Topanga Canyon, in August of 1968. The entire family relocates to the ranch, and it was actually kind of weird because that ranch had been a television like movie set for westerns, but it was abandoned, and the buildings had deteriorated, and the ranch was earning money primarily by selling horseback rides. So it's kind of abandoned. It's basically a fucking ghost town. So in exchange to stay there, the family members did work around the grounds to kind of like keep it up. And also Manson reportedly ordered the family's women, including the famous Lynette Squeaky Fromm, to occasionally have sex with the nearly blind 80-year-old owner, George Span.
The nearly blind.
Nearly blind. If he squints in the good light, you see a little bit.
But
Enough.
He saw that pussy, though, didn't he?
Ooh. So, yeah, so they, the women also acted as seeing eye guides for George Span from time to time. And in exchange, he allowed the Manson family to live on the ranch. And interestingly, the reason that Lynette Fromm is called Squeaky Fromm, allegedly, is because when George Span would pinch her thigh, she would squeak. Yeah, it's nice and disgusting.
Okay.
It's nice and gross.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, when they're living at the ranch, a guy named Charles Watson joins the group. Charles Watson is a small town Texan who had quit college and moved to California. I'm sure some people can relate.
Yeah.
But he met Manson at Dennis Wilson's house during a party, and Watson gave Dennis Wilson a ride while Wilson was hitchhiking after his car was wrecked, and so he kind of got wrapped into the family. George Span nicknamed Watson Tex because of his pronounced Texan drawl. Mm-hmm. And Tex is an important character. Mm-hmm. So Tex is key. He joins the group there in end of summer 1968. So in the first days of November 1968, Manson established the family at a different headquarters in Death Valley. And this is when they go out into the fucking desert.
Yeah.
So Charlie gets on this, religious kick. He's always had religious undertones, right? But at this point, they're hanging out, doing drugs, fucking whatever. And he kind of goes real, I don't know if he had like a heavy trip that just took him real far in to the other realm or whatever, but he gets way more. This is when we start having the delusions of grandeur, right? And he's always had that to some degree because I think he's always been looking for this identity, right? But November of 1968, once we get into the desert, we're really, they're really taking a step away from society. Mm-hmm. I mean, a significant step, right? So the dreams with Dennis Wilson and all that shit of becoming a recording artist haven't worked out for him.
Yeah, so it's like, what do I do now? And so we're just receding.
Right. Yes, exactly. So, so they go out into the desert, and for some time, Manson had been saying that racial tension between blacks and whites was growing, and that blacks would soon rise up in rebellion in America's cities.
Here's where I get, like, where did this come from? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like we're on this, like, I mean, like, hippie, whatever route. And then, where did that come from? Like, it seems like we're on this, like, you know, hippie free love route. And then all of a sudden we're adding this, like, this just seems to come out of nowhere to me.
Well, you have to remember the time period that it is. Racism is still very prevalent in America. I mean, it still is now, but it was different then.
Always.
But racism is very prevalent. You also have to remember, where did Manson grow up? A lot of his life was spent in West Virginia, where racial tension was much more... I
mean, but he was all over the place, though.
Right, but a lot of it was West Virginia, and he kept kind of coming back to that. You know, because his aunt and uncle lived in West Virginia, remember? Every time he was released from prison, he would come back.
I wonder
there.
if this has something to do with his significant stint in prison as well.
Yeah.
You know, racial tensions within the prison system as well, and, you know, their systems of hierarchy and whatnot. And,
definitely.
And cliques there, so...
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely that, like, kind of like almost gang mindset of, like, the whites versus the blacks, like the Sharks versus the Jets, and, like, you know?
Yeah.
So for some time he had been talking about racial tension in their talks that they would have, because they would all get together as a family and Charlie would basically preach. And he had been talking about racial tension, but he emphasized that Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, which had taken place on April 4th of 1968, and this is November 1968, he emphasized that assassination as a turning point. So on New Year's Eve, at the ranch, the family gathered around a large fire and listened as Manson explained that the social turmoil he had been predicting had also been predicted by the Beatles. And this is Helter Skelter. This is how we get Helter Skelter. Manson had visited, while they were back at Span Ranch, Manson and Tex Watson had visited an acquaintance in Topanga Canyon who had played them the Beatles' recently released White Album. And Manson became obsessed with the group. Previously, when he was at McNeil Island, so when he was way younger, right?
Yeah.
When he was at McNeil Island in Washington, he had told fellow inmates that he could surpass the Beatles in fame.
Oh,
right?
Okay, cool. Sure.
But when this...
Can't even properly rob a car, but, I mean, that's fine. Steal a car.
Right. But when this acquaintance in Topanga Canyon plays him the White Album, Manson reportedly just becomes obsessed with it. And he tells the family that the Beatles are the soul and part of the whole and the infinite. That's a quote. What does that mean? Who knows?
I just imagine, like, if you could travel back in time and, like, sit there and just be, like, a modern-day person when all of this was going on. Just imagine, like, you and me just sitting there in our fucking white robes.
It's part of the whole and the infinite, man.
And we just pull out a fucking gun and shoot him right there.
I'm just over
away.
there like, nah. But yeah, so this is when the Beatles get brought in. Manson tells the family on New Year's Eve that the White Album songs told the whole story through code. He said that the album was directed at the family itself, and that the Manson family was an elect group that was being instructed to preserve the worthy from impending disaster. He said that the family would create an album whose songs, as subtle as those of the Beatles, would trigger the predicted chaos. Ghastly murders of whites by blacks would be met with retaliation and a split between racist and non-racist whites would yield whites' self-annihilation. Blacks would triumph, as it were, and the Manson family would then emerge from underground, right? So they're supposed to go underground for all of this craziness, and like racist whites and non-racist whites will fight, and then like brown people will triumph. And then, of course, brown people don't know how to rule themselves. So the Manson family will emerge from underground, and then the Manson family will rule the whole world.
You know, I'm just...
To borrow a line from
just-
Jeff Foxworthy, I believe it is Jeff Foxworthy. You can't fix stupid. No, that's Bill Engvall, isn't it?
I have no clue.
I have no idea.
This is just ridiculous. We've got
Yep.
some lofty goals here.
We do.
They're not good goals by any means to have.
Yeah.
Continue.
Manson is the worst because like he's like so mindfuck racist. Like I don't know.
So he's essentially waiting for
Racial
white people to be annihilated.
Right. For racial tension to erupt,
Right.
white
Okay.
people
So
are
here's the thing.
annihilated.
All right. So you're waiting for white people to be annihilated, right?
Right.
And then for you and your group as a white group to come up,
right.
and just have
Right.
the people
Just be
that
crowned.
annihilated the white people crown you as a white savior
Yep.
because they
Yeah.
can't rule themselves. So they will then. What?
Yeah.
What are you, baby? Again, let's look at the cards here. Nothing is in your future at this point. Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. So that's where we are. You know, the group is, and keep in mind this, I can't state this enough. This whole time, this group is dropping mega drugs. We're on shrooms. We're on fucking acid. We're taking all kinds of like fucking peyote. Like there's a lot of hallucinogens being used, and you're constantly sort of like out of your fucking mind, and you're living out in, you know, cult mentality in the middle of the fucking desert. There's no reality check for you. So you have this magnanimous guy who is talking to you about all this bullshit, and you're fucking zonked out of your mind. And this is a huge like point that, you know, drugs were such a part of their daily lives that there's a story about Tex that's he apparently, I forget what it was, but it was like this root that if you boil it, like you take it was some, I have to remember the name of it, but maybe I could post it if I find out, but it's a root that you boil, and Tex, being a fucking idiot, somebody was boiling that to prepare it for them to take in like small doses. You're only supposed to take like little teeny doses of it, like.
Yeah.
And I think it may have come from First Americans in that particular region of the country, that's how the Manson family knew about it. But you're only supposed to take very small doses, and it's a very, very, very powerful hallucinogen. Well, Tex, being a fucking idiot, comes in the house and sees something boiling on the stove, and he just eats the whole fucking thing. He eats the whole root, right?
You know what, though? So here's the thing. That sounds like something that I could have easily fallen into.
So
What's on the stove, Katie?
He eats this whole fucking root. They lose him for 3 days. They eventually find him in town on his hands and knees, pretending to be a train in a circle of children. Okay? He was never the same after that. They said Tex was not ever the same after that. He was fucked up permanently.
You know, if I come home hungry and there's something cooking on a pot and I eat, you know what? I would have fallen into that.
You would have.
I literally would have.
Be
I cannot blame him for that instance because unless he knew what it was and was just like, you know, trying to be a fucking dumbass. But if you were just coming home and hungry and saw something boiling on the stove and then I'm sitting there eating it and then you're like, Katie, and you're like, Kenny, no, that's an extremely powerful hallucinogen that I have boiled for us to take in less than a teaspoon.
That's supposed to last us for like a year.
And I'm just standing there with a fucking spoon like, oh, fuck.
You're going on a trip, baby. And you don't even have to pay for airfare. We're going to strap you in and I'll check on you in a couple hours.
Just me naked in the room howling at the moonlight.
Yeah. which I don't really need drugs. I kind of am drugs, to borrow Salvador Dali's quote.
I am
I'll
drugs.
howl at the moon, clean and sober.
Yep.
So that's where we are. And I took a minute to talk about the drug culture because I do think it's really, really important. Manson is living in the fucking desert. He can't be the rock star that he wants to be. So he is this group's rock star. They love him. They see him as Jesus. He is their, God, almost. And couple that with he gets all the drugs he wants and he gets all the bush he wants because he's fucking all of these women. He's fucking all of them.
Yeah.
For him, it's a win-win. He's in a great situation. He loves the life that he's living.
Yeah.
He's in the desert doing his thing. Like, they're living like vagabonds, but it's fine. Like, he is king of the hill, so to say. Like, he's king of his little kingdom,
His fantasy.
Yes. But in talking the kind of bullshit that he's talking with, once he gets into the helter-skelter shit and the racial tension shit and the we're gonna rule the world shit, that shit gets dangerous because he's got a lot of people that are doing a lot of fucking hallucinogens and they take him deadly serious.
Yeah.
Right? So, this is where shit starts to pop off. The Manson family is supporting themselves through prostitution and also through robbery. They're stealing, again, this is how Charlie's lived his entire life. They're stealing from, homes and gas stations and wherever they can kind of steal from. So this is what leads us into the murder of Gary Hinman. So Gary Hinman was a music teacher and a PhD student at UCLA. He had been described as a kind, gentle soul who would often open his house up to those needing a place to stay. At some point in the late 60s, he befriended some members of the Manson family, and he apparently let some members of the Manson family stay at his home on occasion. So Manson, at some point, got the notion that Hinman had a bunch of stocks and bonds that he owned in the house. And thinking that he was wealthy, a couple family members, Bobby Beausoleil, along with Mary Brunner and Susan Adkins, went to Gary Hinman's home on July 25th of 1969 to convince Gary to join the family. That included turning over the assets that Manson thought that he had inherited. So all those stocks and bonds and shit. Well, Hinman didn't have any of that shit to turn over. So when he didn't have anything and didn't want to join the family, Brunner, Adkins, and Beausoleil held him hostage for 2 days, during which supposedly Charlie showed up with a sword to slash Hinman's ear. After that, Beausoleil stabbed Hinman to death, supposedly on Manson's instruction. Before leaving Hinman's residence, Beausoleil, or one of the women, it's unclear who did it, used Hinman's blood to write "Political Piggy" on the wall and draw a Black Panther paw, which was a symbol of the Black Panthers, which, as we all know, was a very influential African-American movement in California at the time.
Yeah.
So that act is seen by the Manson family as staging a murder to sort of like stoke the fires of racial tension, right? Like, we're going to bring it about. We're going to make the white people think that black people did this murder, and so the white people attack the black people, and then it leads into this Manson's view of Armageddon. Yes.
So do we think that, like, this was, so obviously this was a turning point, right? Because this is the first time that there's been a murder.
Right.
A life has been taken.
Yes.
So there's obviously a turning point. Are we sure on whether or not this was like an act carried out by him, where he made that decision to, you kill him and do this, or was it the craziness of one of his followers who did it and he was kind of like, fuck.
Yes. And this is where in my understanding of Manson, everything that I've read, everything, all the research that I've done, this is where I differ. My viewpoint on him differs from a lot of other folks, right? The idea of Manson as this fucking criminal mastermind who was just so intelligent and had these people wrapped so around his finger that he just crooked his pinky finger and they, would jump at his command. I don't think that was the case. I think that we have a group of people who were strung out on fucking drugs, who are in the middle of the desert, who are like high on shit, and he's doing this preaching and he's talking to hear himself talk. If you ever hear Manson talk, he speaks to hear himself speak. He's not really communicating anything valuable. He's just talking words that he thinks sound good, right? Because he's into himself. I think at this point, the cult starts pulling away from Manson. They're in support of him and his philosophy, but the cult starts acting ahead of where he's thought to, right?
Yeah.
Because he just wanted them to rob this guy and bring back these fucking stocks, right?
Yeah.
Instead, this guy's tied up. He's being tortured. Manson shows up, sees that the guy's being tortured. Manson tries to intimidate him, slashes his ear. Come on. Bussolé stabbed him like a lot, and it was a very, very, very gruesome scene. Manson only slashes his ear. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like that was something like this person was already insane and capable of doing that, and then I can see that.
So in my mind, this is the Manson family. At this point, the cart's in front of the horse, and Charlie is like, "Fuck," because Charles Manson is a con man. Charles Manson is not a murderer. He is a con man,
Right.
and his con is totally getting out of hand, and he has no idea how to rein it back in.
Yeah.
So now Charlie's in panic mode. There also was a whole side plot about one of the reasons that they had gone to him in the first place is because they were trying to recover money paid to him for drugs, and I'll just mention that in passing. It's not really that important why they were there, but it is important, that obviously they murdered this poor guy.
Yeah.
So that happens in July 25th of 1969. Then on the night of August 8th, 1969, Tex Watson, Susan Adkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel head to 10050 Cielo Drive in Los Angeles, which happens to be the home that was recently rented to Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. And that's the night of the Tate, Sebring, Folger, Parent, and Frykowski murders.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, through Dennis Wilson, Manson had met Rudy Altabelli, right, who had rented this house out to Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. So that was kind of his connection, and he knew that they were there. He knew that they were wealthy, so it's a robbery, right? It's standard operating procedure, what they've always done. So supposedly Manson directs these family members to go out to this home to rob them, right? The family members proceeded...
Which could have been the case.
Right. The family members proceeded to kill all 5 people that they found. Actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant at the time. Her unborn child also did not survive. Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski, who were visiting Sharon Tate, and Stephen Parent, who had been visiting the caretaker of the home. Roman Polanski was not present on the night of the murders since he was working on a film in Europe. And it is said that after that happened, after Sharon Tate's murder, because Sharon Tate was a huge star at that time, and she was absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't matter. She was also very smart and had a good career and a good relationship by all intents and purposes with Roman Polanski. But she was gorgeous. She was a star. Everybody knew who she was, and it was absolutely devastating what happened.
Yeah.
But it's Roman Polanski talked for years after that he never got over his survivor guilt of not being there, because he would have been there if he hadn't been working on that movie.
Yeah.
And he would have died too. And so it's actually really sad to hear him talk about it.
Yeah.
But the Manson family brutally murders everyone in the home, and Susan Adkins scrawled the word pig in blood on the front door as they left. The murders created a huge uproar in the nation. It was one of the earlier high profile murders that had taken place. So if you remember everything that like what the O.J. Simpson trial kind of did to America, this was similar to that, right?
Yeah.
We don't have that racial component. The Manson family thinks we will, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have that racial component here, but it was like such a fucking high profile thing that everybody was just torn apart.
Yeah.
So the next night, August 9th, 6 family members, Leslie Van Houten, Steve Grogan, and all 4 folks from the previous night, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Tex Watson, they go out again. And they go to, so the murders at the Tate house happen, and they're fucking jazzed. Like, they're ready to go. We scrawled pig in blood on the door. Like, we're bringing the apocalypse about, right? And we're going to go underground and we're going to be okay. And then we're going to rule the fucking world. And they're like on a like bullet train to fucking crazy town, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Manson, right? Who is their leader and whose philosophy they're using. But Manson at this point is, you know, from reading Manson in his own words and then from also reading other sources talking about his actions during that time, it seems like Manson is not necessarily backpedaling, but trying to figure out how to get control, right? Because now, you know,
What he has created has like really gone off the end.
Right. 100%. Because again, that was a robbery. You were supposed to get money. You were supposed to get supplies. What the fuck, right? And the next night, this gang of 6 people, right, 6 Manson family members goes out and they're ready to do it again. We got to bring about the apocalypse. So they go out again on Manson's orders or not on Manson's orders. It's kind of a gray area.
Yeah.
Allegedly, they were out on his orders. So they were... supposedly they go out and Manson's goal is to show the gang how to do it, meaning murder, right? Because he was displeased by all the panic of the victims at Cielo Drive at the Tate house, and so he was going to show them how to murder. So they ride around for a couple hours and they consider breaking into a number of homes. They even attempt one, but they abandon it. And then Manson gave Kasabian directions that brought them to 3301 Waverly Drive. This was the home of supermarket executive Lino LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary LaBianca, who owned a dress shop. So this house was just next door to a house that Manson and his family members had attended a party at the previous year. So that's like really the only connection. It's so tenuous. Supposedly, according to Susan Atkins and Linda Kasabian, Manson disappeared up the driveway and returned to say that he had tied up the house's occupants. And then he sent Tex Watson up with Krenwinkel and Van Houten. In his autobiography, Tex Watson said that he went up alone, and Manson went up alone, and he returned to take him up to the house with him. And Manson pointed out a sleeping man through the window. Tex and Manson went in through the unlocked back door, and then, like, basically Tex did most of the work from there, which is the account that I believe, right? I don't believe that Charlie Manson fucking, like, he's tiny. Have you ever seen the dude? He's, like, so tiny.
Yeah.
He's short and not very muscular. I don't believe that he broke into somebody's home and hogtied 2 people.
Yeah.
I think Tex Watson, this big strapping Texan dude who is gone
The muscle.
in the mind, right, did it. And Tex actually goes on to say that. He said that Manson woke Mr. LaBianca up on the couch at gunpoint, and while Manson held him at gunpoint, Tex Watson bound his hands with a leather strap, and then Rosemary was brought into the living room from the bedroom, and Watson covered their heads with pillowcases, and he also tied her up as well. The pillowcases were bound in place with lamp cords. So Manson leaves, sends the other 2 up the driveway into the house. with instructions that the couple could be killed, allegedly. So Tex had complained to Manson about the inadequacy of the weapons that they used the previous night at the Tate house. Tex sent the women, from the Manson women, from the kitchen to the bedroom. And Rosemary LaBianca apparently had gotten loose from her bindings and had run into the bedroom.
Yeah.
Tex went into the living room and began stabbing Lena LaBianca with a chrome-plated bayonet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very bloody scene. Sounds of a scuffle in the bedroom drew Tex Watson into the bedroom to discover that Rosemary LaBianca was actually fighting off the Manson women by swinging the lamp that was tied to her neck. Because remember, he secured the pillowcases with a lamp cord, and she's like swinging the lamp.
That's my bitch right there.
That's just not true. Yeah. I mean, yeah, she was a badass.
She was fighting.
Yeah, she was. So after Tex subdued her with several stabs of the bayonet, he returned to the living room and resumed attacking her husband, who was stabbed a total of 12 times with the bayonet. When he had finished, Tex Watson carved war on Mr. LaBianca's exposed abdomen. But that was actually later challenged by Susan Atkins, who she said that she didn't enter the LaBianca house, but that she thought that Patricia Krenwinkel had been the one to carve the word war into Mr. LaBianca's abdomen. So that detail goes back and forth between who fucking did it, because nobody knows who's doing anything, because everybody's hopped up on fucking drugs, and nobody knows, like, half of this is real and half of it is not real, and like we're fucking doing some kind of shit for a race war, and we're like carving obscure words like war and pigs into people, and yeah, so nobody knows what the fuck's going on. But after murdering Mr. LaBianca, Tex Watson returns to the bedroom and finds Patricia Krenwinkel stabbing Rosemary LaBianca with a knife that she had gotten from the LaBianca's kitchen. Tex said that he was heeding Charlie Manson's instruction to make sure that each of the women played a part in the murders. Tex Watson said that he told Leslie Van Houten to stab Rosemary LaBianca as well. And she did, stabbing her approximately 16 times in the back. And at trial, Leslie Van Houten would claim that Rosemary LaBianca was dead when she had stabbed her. So she tried to get out of it that way by saying she was already dead. But evidence showed that a lot of her 41 stab wounds were inflicted post-mortem. So they don't fucking know what's going on. They have no idea what's happening. They're hopped up on drugs. They're fucking just swirling in this helter-skelter.
Yeah.
Like, it is
Yeah,
helter-skelter.
yeah.
So Tex Watson cleans off the bayonet and showers. And Krenwinkel writes Rise and Death to Pigs on the walls and Helter-Skelter. And the fucking idiot misspells Helter-Skelter.
Yeah.
She wrote Heelter-Skelter.
Yeah.
H-E-A-L.
Yeah.
So she writes that, she fucking misspells that, embarrassing, on the refrigerator door, all in the LaBianca's blood. She reportedly gave Lena LaBianca 14 postmortem puncture wounds with an ivory-handled two-tined, I don't know what that means, carving fork.
It's the tines in the fork. It's like the carving fork when you get a turkey and you put the fork in, and that allows you to carve it.
Well, apparently that's what she used to stab him 14 times.
Yeah, not good.
Which she just left jutting out of his stomach. And she also planted a steak knife in his throat. Yeah. So apparently, Manson had gone on to direct Linda Kasabian to drive to the home of another actor acquaintance of hers. And he was supposedly, like, he left 3 other Manson family members at that guy's apartment building. And they were supposed to, like, break in and kill him, but they didn't. they like knocked on the wrong fucking apartment door and like woke up a stranger, and the guy like came to the door and they didn't know who it was, so they just like awkwardly abandoned their murder plot and like left.
Okay, first of all, that guy had a brush with death.
100%. Like, can you imagine just like you get a knock on your door in the night and you like open it and it's just like this fucking weird ass group of cult people who are zonked out of their minds, and their pupils are like the fucking size of like Texas, and they're just like,
Oh, wrong idea. Yeah.
immediately closed door.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Like, it seems to me like they would have just went, like, oh, well, it's not the right guy, but we'd do it anyway.
Yeah, right.
You know what
yes,
I mean? Like,
yes.
So it's kind of like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they could have very well just have said fuck it and went in anyway.
But that tells you that they have no fucking idea what they're doing. This is not something that is organized by a fucking mastermind. This is not something that makes any logical sense. This is Charles Manson trying to continue to call the shots when he knows that he has lost the playbook, right?
Yeah.
That, that the incident at the murders at the Tate house really, I believe, shook Charlie up, because they were supposed to go and rob those people, and then they ended up like fucking murdering them.
Yeah.
Right? Horrifically. And then he saw what they were capable of. And then he's trying to get control by doing these things that are acting like a leader. So he takes them out and he's like, okay, we're going to do it again. Right? He shows up at the LaBianca house. He leaves before the murders take place. Right? He shows up. He sends these people to this guy's apartment with obviously unclear instructions. Right? And just drops them off. He heads back to their like commune. Right? And leaves them to do their job. They don't, and they eventually just kind of like wander back to the homestead.
Yeah.
But not before Susan Atkins shat in the stairwell, apparently. Yeah. That's a great detail for you.
Well, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yes. So, to me, what we're seeing there is things spinning out of control and Charles Manson trying to maintain the image of being in control of it. But I truly do not believe that at that point he's in control. Nobody's in control.
I've never thought that it sounded like it was that he was in control.
There is no control. Now, that's not me saying that it's not Charles Manson's fault. I am not a Manson apologist. I definitely think that he deserved to be in prison for the rest of his life. He was a super fucking dangerous person, but he is not a criminal, like a sexy criminal mastermind. He's a fucking idiot con artist whose con got ahead of him and he lost control.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So the Tate murders obviously became national news immediately. The Polanski's housekeeper, whose name was Winifred Chapman, had arrived for work the morning after, and she discovered this horrible scene, which that poor woman, I feel so bad for her. The next day, detectives of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department had informed LAPD of the writing at the Himman house, right? So you have writing at the Tate house, you have writing at Himman's house, and the county police call LAPD to tell them about it. However, LAPD thought that the Tate murders were just the consequence of a drug transaction, and they totally just ignored the Hinman case initially, completely.
Okay. Smart.
Yeah, always a great choice. The LaBianca crime scene was discovered on August 10th at around 10:30 p.m., about 19 hours after the murders had taken place. 15-year-old Frank Struthers, who was Rosemary's son from a prior marriage and Leno's stepson, had returned from a camping trip and was disturbed by seeing all of the window shades at his home drawn, and by the fact that his stepfather's speedboat was still attached to the family car, which was parked in the driveway. So he called his older sister and her boyfriend. And the boyfriend, Joe Dorgan, accompanied Frank Struthers into the home, and they discovered Leno's body. And he was 15. So that's absolutely horrible and a fucking nightmare and the worst. They discovered Leno's body together. Rosemary's body was found by investigating police officers. So they didn't, at that point, I don't think they went any further into the home. the police officers found Rosemary, which at least that's some sort of small break, I guess, for that poor kid. But I feel really, really, really bad for him.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm not going to go into all of the crazy details because it's already a super long-winded story. I'm not going to go into all the details of the investigation, but eventually they do connect the Hinman murder and the Tate murders and the LaBianca homicide. And the Manson family was actually already in trouble with the police because they had been stealing Volkswagen Beetles and converting.
God
Yes.
damn it.
Yes.
Here we go again.
Yes.
God fucking damn it. All right. Now this sounds like Manson. I feel like this is fully Manson.
100% Manson, right? This, again, fucking stealing cars. So they're stealing Volkswagen
What have
Beetles.
I told you? What have I told you? What have I told you?
They're stealing Beetles and converting them into dune buggies for their like desert homestead, and they were picked up on charges related to that on August 16th. They seized some weapons, but because the warrant was misstated, the group was released a couple days later. So they arrest them and they have them, and they just let them go.
God damn it!
Because the warrant was misstated.
Who did that?
God.
Did someone lose their job?
I'm sure a lot of people lost their job over this. So eventually all of the cases get connected, and Boussalet's girlfriend, Kitty Lutzinger, she was arrested, and she, opened up about like the Hinman murder and all of those being connected. So eventually all of them get picked up. Once people get picked up, they start singing like canaries. And eventually we have, on December 1st, LAPD announcing warrants for the arrest of Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, Linda Kasabian in the case, and Manson and Susan Adkins, who were already in custody, weren't mentioned in that particular press release or warrants because they were already arrested for, I think they got booked for like some type of, I think they picked him up, like the park rangers fucking picked him up for the dune buggy thing. I have no idea. Basically, they got him, and on March 29th, 1971, the jury returned verdicts of death against all of the defendants on all counts. And on April 19th, 1971, they were sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life in prison, as we know, for Charlie Manson, because Manson died on November 19th, 2017, from cardiac arrest resulting from respiratory failure and colon cancer at a hospital in Bakersfield, California. And he can go to hell.
Well, which circle do you believe he's in, Katie?
Yeah. It's a long, convoluted story, and there's a lot that we skipped over, obviously, to make it fit. But we did, want to talk about it because, it is coming up on 50 years.
You could go many episodes.
Oh my God!
Into
Yes,
this.
yes.
Like this is a rabbit hole.
Such a deep dive. Yes, because there's so many weird connections between like the Manson family and like really famous celebrities at the time period.
Well, you mentioned that thing about the Beach Boys guy, and I didn't realize that at all.
Yeah.
I love the Beach Boys, but
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a dark twist on them.
damn.
Yes.
And this was a time. This was such a I remember my first exposure to this case was when I was really, really little, because my mother had the book Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
And it had all of the pictures from the crime scene in it, or at least some of them. So could you imagine me, just like little 5-year-old, 6-year-old me, whatever, and I'm just, I've got this book full of all these pictures in it, and like still to this day, those images are like burned into my brain.
Great. Yeah, most kids have Fisher Price like toys and books and shit, and you're playing with Helter Skelter.
I'm reading Helter Skelter, yeah. But it was...
That's okay. I was reading and Will's books on Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
I was reading The Stranger Beside Me at like
God.
8.
Could you imagine just showing the parallels, and then there's me with the fucking Helter Skelter
Not
book,
acceptable.
and then you with that? Oh my God! But this really, I mean, you mentioned the fact, like Sharon Tate was such a huge, a celebrity at that time, but like that really sort of, this high profile case really changed a lot of things. Like, this was the year, this was the decade of like, the hippie flower piece, whatever.
Right.
And then like it just sort of came to a complete fucking halt with these murders. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are some alternative theories. There's one particular interesting alternative theory to the helter-skelter scenario. So the main story that we're told is that, the group is trying to commit these murders to bring about the apocalypse, right? Mm-hmm. And to bring about the race war, to bring about helter-skelter. But according to Beausoleil, in interviews with Truman Capote, notably, and a couple other reporters, it was actually Beausoleil's arrest for the torture and murder of Gary Hinman that instigated the Manson family's ensuing murder spree. So they're saying that when Bobby Beausoleil got picked up for torturing and murdering Gary Hinman, that UCLA student, PhD student, that the Manson family then decided that they would go on a murder spree to convince police that the killers of Gary Hinman were still at large. So that it couldn't be him, so that he would be released. So that is also kind of cited as a secondary motive for the murders. And that makes sense to me. Like, if you were hopped up on drugs, that makes sense to me that could be like a, oh shit, how do we get Bobby out of trouble?
Right.
So just thought that I would mention that because that's always interesting.
Yeah.
Too. But it was fucked up.
Wow.
Super fucked. Charles Manson, an idiot.
I would have to be. That sounds very plausible to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. From everything that, we've talked about today, I definitely just sort of get the vibe that he was not that fucking smart.
No. But he certainly performed for the cameras in the court cases
But
with the swastika carving and all that shit.
Right. But I think even though we may deem him as not very intelligent or actually like smart, I mean, there is something to say about how dangerous someone that can like portray that they are, or project, I should say. I guess what I'm trying to say is that shows the dangers of the powers of perception.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And how like you may not be that smart, but how you can twist it
right.
To make yourself appear
right.
however you want to be.
It comes down to, if you think that I have the power to make you do something, then I do.
Yes.
And I don't think that Charles Manson was any smarter or more cunning or more of a mastermind than anyone else. But I do think that he had a gift for people, for understanding people, and for being able to look at a person and see what they were missing, what hole there was in their spirit. And then he was able to slip right in, and he was able to manipulate. I don't think to the degree that he's having people murder for him. I think that they were doing that out of their own drug-fueled, insanity. But he was able to manipulate them, and I'm very glad that he went to prison for the rest of his fucking days.
Yeah.
So that's Manson, people. There you go. You wanted a big one? That's a big one.
That is a big one.
A big one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wanted to bookend us on something a little lighthearted.
Yes. Oh, yeah? More lighthearted than horrible race war?
Yeah, I wanted to bookend us on something that was a little lighthearted. So I just have a couple of very short, topical Valentine's horror stories that I'm just going to briefly mention.
Let's go for it.
Give us a bit of a giggle, hopefully.
Bit of a giggle.
All right, so this is a story. One ex went to a strip club for our first Valentine's Day together and didn't come to my place until 3 a.m., covered in body glitter and alcohol. And another gave me cellulite cream and miscellaneous Christmas lotions and lip balm.
Cellulite cream. Oh, no. That is terrible, because you don't know in that story if he was trying to be a dick or God bless.
If he just didn't know.
If he just didn't know. If he
He
thought
gave
it was like lotion and he just like smelled it and thought it smelled really good and he was like, I'll get her this. And he just
Actually,
fucking...
cellulite cream.
Oh my God. I
Well,
could see that.
I just feel like he was probably not a great giver because it was
don't think
cellulite
so.
cream, miscellaneous Christmas lotions, and lip balm from Avon that his mom gave him.
Great. Good. I think all that came out of mom's like closet.
This person goes on to say, the only man who's ever given me a nice Valentine has always been my daddy.
Aww. That's beautiful. That's very sweet. That's how I feel about my mom. My mom has always like made Valentine's Day special.
Yep.
She's a very sweet lady.
All right, my next one. I was married for 3 years. The last year we were married, he didn't get me what I wanted, roses. Instead, he got me cheesecake.
Okay. Okay. What kind of basic
What kind of fucking
bitch?
bitch is this right here? Listen, but listen. Too bad I'm lactose intolerant and also very allergic to eggs, soy, and milk.
Oh, no.
He also knew I was.
Okay, what a bitch. I mean, not her, now him. Wow.
Bitch, I got this cheesecake for me.
I mean, 100% I would be like, I would be about the cheesecake. You can miss me with them roses.
For
I mean,
real.
roses are nice, but
Yeah, cheesecake is better.
I mean, roses and cheesecake is great.
Yeah. All right, next one. Last Valentine's Day, I went on a blind date. He took me to this fabulous little sushi spot, and things were going great. It comes up in conversation that he is a black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay.
The next thing I know, I've been secured in what he referred to as a cobra chokehold. I bet it was.
I
bitch.
mean, this just sounds like foreplay
I
for
bet
me.
it was a cobra chokehold. In his attempts to teach me some of his moves. Let's just say I won't be going on a blind date this Valentine's Day.
I mean, there's a time and place for the cobra chokehold.
I'm just saying.
It's not the restaurant, but it could be somewhere else. Like,
It could
if
be.
you make it that far, you know what I mean?
Could have been. We could have had it all.
We could have. We could have.
All right. I complained to my boyfriend of 10 years that I never get flowers. So the next year, I got a box of assorted flowers, Flours.
God bless him.
He thought he was
This
funny.
motherfucker.
I wasn't laughing.
No, I love him. No, that shit is funny as. Oh my God.
I don't see what
No.
your problem is. It sounds like you don't have a sense of humor.
That's great. You could send him my way. That's really funny.
Right. All right. I'll do one more.
Assorted flowers. I wonder if it was like almond flour, like coconut flour, white flour, wheat flour, maybe some panko breadcrumbs in there too.
Hey, listen. You would appreciate it, though.
I would. We'd be
And
eating
also
good.
get the joke.
We'd be eating good all year, and I'd be laughing. It's fine. I'm
right.
gonna make you some cheesecake.
Next one, and last one I'll do, because we are severely over our time. my high school boyfriend bought me a pair of used ankle boots from a yard sale. He was proud of himself for adding shoe polish before he gave them to me.
God, you know. Yeah, you just
Used
It's not good.
Used
Gift
ankle
cards.
boots.
Gift cards are always good. I will say some people just are not good gift givers. If you're not, don't ever be afraid of the gift card. It's fine. And also, if you're with somebody who you know is a poor gift giver, just go ahead and tell them what you want. Just go ahead and tell them. You know, don't stop being bougie. Stop trying to like think that he's gonna like know what you want or she's gonna know what you want. Just go ahead and let him know. No shame in that.
Okay, I actually have one more.
A bonus.
In junior high, I bought a box of chocolates to give to a boy I had a crush on, but had never approached. I gave him the candy, and he laughed in my face and still took it.
Is there a year on that? Was that you? I
Fuck
think that
you.
might have been you.
Fuck you.
I think that might have been you.
That was funny. So
You would do that. You asshole.
no, I wouldn't have because I don't fucking like chocolate candy.
Oh,
Valentines.
true. I mean, I think you'd probably still take it if offered.
I'd still take it,
Let's
but
be
then
real.
wouldn't eat it.
Maybe.
I would have given it to you.
Fuck you. All right, guys. That's going to be our episode. It was a long one.
Yeah.
If you're still here, man, I hope you took some breaks and like did some stuff around your house. I hope you got some water, like took a snack break.
Yep.
It's our longest episode ever. But thanks for hanging out. If you want to chill with us online, we have a banging ass Facebook group. It is awesome and it is growing by the day, which is really cool. If you search the Haunted Heart podcast on Facebook, you can find our group. Our page, The Haunted Heart, is also on Facebook. If you will go over and like that page, that would be fabulous. We share news there, and sometimes like pictures and shit like that. But the group is really where it's at. There's a lot of people that are way cooler than us there, so I definitely encourage everybody to get on over there and get into that. We are on Instagram at The Haunted Heart Podcast. We're also on Twitter at The Haunted Heart. And if you ever want to email us about anything on the show, about probably the 50 fucking things that I got wrong about Charles Manson, you can hit us up at thehauntedheartpodcast@gmail.com anytime. We love hearing from you guys on there. And we are also, I know I mentioned it as a joke earlier in the episode, but we are also on Patreon. So if you think that we do a good job with the show and you want to support us, we really sincerely appreciate it. Every cent of the Patreon money goes right back into the show and to creating more content for you guys. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/thehauntedheart. And I think that's all of our socials and shit, right? We have a surprise for you guys this week. That will be dropping sometime later in the week. We know when it's dropping. We just don't want to tell you specifically when it's dropping. I'm not being vague because we don't know what the fuck we're doing. I'm being vague because I'm trying to be suspicious.
Drop sometime at some point in the near future.
I'm just saying, if you want to like keep an eye on your podcast feed this weekend, it might not be a bad idea.
Suspicious.
Yes, quite. So that's all for this week, and we will see you guys next. Well, we won't see you. We won't hear you either, but you'll hear us, I guess.
You'll hear us next time on the Haunted Heart Podcast. And until next time, stay spooky.
There's a time for living. The time keeps on flying. Think you're loving, baby, and all you're doing is crying. Can you feel? Are those feelings real? Look at your game, girl. Look at your game, girl. What a mad delusion. Living in that confusion, frustration and doubt. Can you ever live without the game? The sad, sad game. Mad game. Just to say your love's not enough. If on you can't be true, you can tell those lies, baby, but you're only fooling you. Can you feel? Are those feelings real? Look at your game, girl. Oh, look at your game, girl. If you can't feel, and the feelings ain't real, then you better stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. Stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. That's the game.